Colt, when you're dealing with children with these cases? Is it kind of a harder case to work?
It's not difficult, but it's different. There's a different approach from the beginning, and then settlement or filing a lawsuit is very different just because of the legal requirements for minors. So we can't settle a case with a minor. If it's less than $2,500, we can just give the money to the parents. But if the child is going to net more than $2,500, that settlement always has to be approved by the court, which makes things take longer. You know, you have the parents' claim already wrapped up and paid, and then they're waiting. You know, we're waiting on a court date, waiting to get in front of a judge. We have to do all those things like have someone appointed a guardian ad litem, like Justin talked about. And then there's different thresholds for what we can even do. So if the child's netting more than $2,500 but less than $15,000, we can still ask the court to give all that money to the parent as guardian ad litem to hold for the child until they're 18. But if the child is going to net more than $15,000, that's when the court will require that we get a conservator appointed, which is a lot more difficult and has to go through the probate court.
Or and a conservator is what, really?
A conservator it's a probate court term. It's like they would do the same thing as the guardian ad litem would, which is hold it until the kid is 18 years old. But there's a lot more requirements. And you've got to put it into a restricted account with the bank and go through the probate court, which is just a process. Sometimes they'll require you to submit a credit report just to make sure that you're financially sound and stable and that you're really going to hold this money until they're 18. Because there are legal consequences, right? If you're a mom and you go out to Las Vegas and spend all your kids' money, then your kid can come after you later and say, my mom spent my settlement money on vacation. So the court wants to prevent that, and so they put in all these restrictions and requirements to just try to ensure that that won't happen.
No, that makes sense. So, I mean, just for folks who don't know, what would make that different as far as how much they got back, if it was $2,500 or more or less? What is that? Depends on how catastrophic their injuries are? Or does that matter on their insurance, or kind of everything?
Everything. It matters on their injuries, right? What their claim is worth, and then we're taking into account how much insurance there is, how much money there is to get. But it is that net amount at the end. After all the fees and medical bills and everything's paid, what is that child actually going to take home in their pocket? That's where the thresholds.
Interesting. And folks, of course, we want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube and watch all of the videos. We have so many more on this topic and more. But moving back into this, you know, how is this different for things like they're injured at the playground, they're injured, you know, doing other things outside of car accidents? How do we handle?
So just like adults are injured, you know, doing everyday things like a slip and fall at a hotel, I mean, children get injured as well. And, you know, the cases that we see in our office, we see some daycare injuries. We see some playground at schools or playground at these daycare injuries like that. And what's different about that is, you know, South Carolina has an agency, DHEC, that will do a report and see, you know, what was going on there. Was there some kind of other negligent act by the daycare or by the child care provider? Was there some kind of negligent design of this playground equipment? We've had cases like that. And so that's when we can rely on sending our Freedom of Information Act request and get all that information back from DHEC and say, hey, was there a pattern of these kind of issues at this daycare? Throwing that out there, a lot of these daycares with COVID, you know, they were understaffed. And so everybody had to go back to work. And so they got to bring their kids. And if they're not watching them, if they're on the playground, bad things can happen and kids can get hurt. So sometimes DHEC investigations will reveal a pattern of understaffing. And then we could pursue punitive damages. And you've heard us talk about that in other episodes, but that's meant to punish and deter this kind of conduct, because the kids are who we need to protect most of all in society, right? And so, and a lot of these are just, it should never happen, right? If they're just watching these kids and taking care of them, they're not going to get hurt on the playground, they're not going to get hurt at daycare, they're not going to get
it's a lot of negligence.
So that's a little different. We still have to, just like we would a car wreck, we still got to go get treatment, we still got to do our investigation, we still got to, you know, work everything up to get to the finish line. But with those kind of cases, there are a couple more issues that we would examine.
Okay. And you know, we were kind of all chatting prior to rolling and about just a lot of cases, or questions I should say, that we get about bullying and people trying to file claims about bullying. Tell me a little bit about kind of the calls you get about that.
So we get a lot of calls about that, and of course, you know, we're the first to stand up for somebody being bullied. Okay, that's what we always stand by. And, you know, my wife and partner Amy. That's like her passion.
Yep.
But what parents need to realize is, I mean, this world is tough, okay, and not all of these cases are viable. Of course, and that's a tough conversation, because when somebody hurts your kid, I mean, you want to.
Yeah.
I got kids. I know exactly how you feel. I mean, you're ready to go fight for you. So they call us, and we'll talk to you. And sometimes that's our role. We have to be a therapist as well as a lawyer sometimes. But,
right.
Unless there's something catastrophic, it's not going to be a case.
Unless the school is on notice.
Absolutely.
Which is difficult. A notice is always difficult to prove.
What does that mean if they're on notice?
That they knew that there was bullying or threats against a particular child, or they knew that they should have known that this catastrophic bullying incident was about to happen.
Gotcha.
Then they're on notice.
But really, that doesn't happen until the child is injured or something like that, right?
Usually it doesn't happen until the child is injured, and that will be the first time that it happens. But notice is just difficult to prove.
Yeah.
But if it's there, then.
Right.
So what would be kind of your recommendation for parents that call that are being bullied? Do you tell them to go to the police or to the school, or what do you kind of tell them?
Yeah, well, the first thing we always tell them, of course, is to go up the chain of command within the school.
Okay.
And then a lot of times they'll do that, the problem gets resolved. Okay?
Gotcha.
The reason they're calling us is they may call their teacher, internally, or a lot of times there's these apps now that they're using to communicate with their classrooms.
Yeah.
Because everything kind of went virtual because of COVID again. I blame everything on COVID. But they'll use these apps to communicate, and they're not getting the answer that they want, or it's getting lost in translation, right? And then that's when they start raising hell and wanting to talk to a lawyer, and that's when we get those phone calls. And then we say, hey, look, call the school resource officer, call the vice principal, call the principal, go up the chain of command.
Right.
Usually that will get taken care of. And then we recommend, if that's not getting it solved, go up to the school board and see where that can get you. But as far as filing a lawsuit that would be viable in court, would be worth the expense, very few would qualify.
Okay. And of course, nobody wants to think about children, being injured or anything. But of course, it's helpful. The more you know, the better prepared you are to help your kids out. So that's why we kind of wanted to come on and chat about kids today. But thank you both for chatting and shedding some light on children and how to handle those cases.
No problem.
And folks, you of course can watch all of the Carolina Justice Reports. We drop a new episode every Tuesday at 2 p.m. There's tons of great information on there for you to look into, but also you can find us on any social media channel. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere that you can find anything. And then we're also on our website, justiceslovely.com. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The love